Startup ecosystem, what the idea is that you have to learn how to pitch your idea clearly and concisely. And once you learn how to do that, then you can bring in all the stakeholders and you can get into programs that'll help you and train you on how to build it. But that first step is you have to design a business model that is desirable.
When I initially moved back to Pensacola, I had a meeting with Lloyd. Lloyd invited me for breakfast and I was telling him, man, I still have an idea for the entertainment industry. This is what I wanted to do. He was like, all right, I got Startup on the Blocks. So I need you to start coming to Startup on the Blocks and get a little more information on how to work through the tech ecosystem and take your idea and we'll get you where you need to go. My company is called The Know, is an app that is streamlining business for the entertainment industry. Yeah, so if you're a musician, what you would do is pretty much jump on the platform, you'll create a profile, but the way we created the profile is pretty much a cleaner way. So now if they want more information about you, you'll connect your social media platforms, your streaming platforms, and that way they can go directly to it. What we also have included is your calendar. So pretty much you can set your days, you can set your price for your days and automate your booking. So initially talking to Lloyd, my idea was all here, it was there, it was over here, it was over there. It was like, all right, Quinn, I get it. You got a lot that you want to do, but we need you to bring it in just a little bit and then work on your pitch, your story, and how you're going to bring it full circle to get people to understand what you're trying to create.
Most of the programs here wasn't inclusive, and so we said we'll focus on helping founders of color. We also start at the beginning of the thing, at the idea stage, whereas a lot of the programs you see here locally, they start after you're up, and that's not very efficient unless if you don't have a lot of money, you can't recover from your mistakes. And the lean startup system, it actually helps you make mistakes faster before you spend a lot of money. You don't actually start building anything until you got customer buy-in.
There was a need for small businesses to bring brand awareness to their business. I see there's a lot of makers and bakers that they're making all of these goodies and these products, but they can't market it, they can't sell it at the same time, and there needs to be kind of like that middleman, that middle person to help bring economic growth to some of the small businesses in Pensacola. So Taste of Pensacola, I came up with that idea during the pandemic when I saw things at that time that Amazon couldn't fulfill. They didn't even have those products, but the local people in the community, they did. And so there was a ton of people coming out saying, hey, I make masks. I'm like, wow, this is amazing. All the local people here that are just as talented that can actually make those products. And so I wanted to kind of showcase who they were. So with Taste of Pensacola, our income streams, we have several of them. We have the corporate America. We do corporate gifting, just regular consumers, different Pensacola natives that don't live here that want to purchase our boxes, like a taste of weddings, distribution. So we also do bulk sales. So for a private airline, if they want some local snacks and goodies on their passenger flights, they will come to Taste of Pensacola and we will source their vendors here locally. And we'll give a small business owner an opportunity to have reoccurring monthly sales. I've always had a really big vision for Taste of Pensacola. I knew that it could go beyond just local. I know that maybe other communities could possibly use the same platform that I'm trying to build. And I always have these big visions, but I never know how to even get there. Where do I start? I know it's more than, there's a lot of technical things behind it. I know there's a lot of research, but that connection, I never had it until, thankfully, I met and was introduced to Startups on the Blocks and was able to just learn more about how to grow it in terms of data. Things I just never thought about, framework, words like traction. There's a lot of things that I just did not know about in language that I need to know in order to get funding for my business. There's just a lot that I didn't know.
I would go to the stores and look online. They didn't have a wide variety of natural hair products about 8 years ago. And the ones that they did have, the ingredients, it would say that they were all natural. And when I would research the ingredients, a lot of the ingredients were not natural. I make everything, my shampoo, conditioner, I have an oil that I make, and I have 2 different separate butters. Like I had some people who were completely bald and grew their hair. It's about giving women their confidence back in their hair. I have this salon and I have a second salon, and I have my products in about 5 beauty supply stores. So I need a manufacturer to keep up with the demand at this point. Startup on the Blocks has helped my business grow. Send me to different people. I'm able to do different pitch competitions to apply for grants in the community for small businesses. Lloyd's a really good person to connect with. He has a lot of resources here in the community that can help small businesses grow. If you have a product out there and you're trying to go big time, he's the person that you would want to meet with.
So it's really important to have some type of support because 9 times out of 10, most founders start out on their own. And to have somebody that has an idea of how the ecosystem works and is able to tap into other resources and bring back to the community, and that pretty much has encountered some of the roadblocks or going through the same roadblocks that we're currently going through and understands where you're at, your culture and how you respond to things, is a big help because you don't really have too many people that have access to what we have access to here in the community. And a lot of people believe that you have to leave and go to bigger cities to do the things that we're doing here. But I mean, it's one thing to have exposure, but you have to actually know it's here in the community in order to take advantage of the resources. So I get approached and I talk to friends all the time that wants to either start an idea or hear that I'm actually doing the app and wants to know more information about how are you doing it or what's the process, what's the path. I'm like, man, we have somebody here, Startup on the Blocks, Lloyd Richard. And Lloyd is here, he's a great resource to the community and to founders that's trying to learn the ecosystem. So join Startup on the Blocks.
Hey everybody, welcome to Startup on the Blocks. We're going to get Amena on here. Here she is. How are you? Good to see you there.
Yes, good to see you as well. Thank you so much for having me today.
Yes, I'm definitely excited to have you on to kind of share some best practices for building a using QA when you're building a mobile app. I'm going to share my screen here and give a shout out to our sponsors. Let's see here. Yeah, and as a result of this, the Black Innovation Leaders of Florida Innovation Tour and the Black Founders Innovation Summit, we actually doubled the amount of sponsors we have. So I don't haven't updated my slide here, but it's definitely excited to have folks actually trying to support the training founders on the best practices for building a startup. I bet you, do you run into some founders that are unsure what's going on there, Amena?
Oh yeah, absolutely. All the time. I mean, I'm a founder myself and I understand the struggle for sure.
Okay, good.
And
So,
having
yeah.
something like this as a resource, as a support system is fantastic.
Yes, and I think there is a lot to it and a lot of little nuances that you definitely have to become a student to learn. And I was watching a webinar today with Greg Shepard, and he was going through the life cycle stuff and listening to him after he's been through 12 exits, and then you realize how much you really don't know.
Yes, there's always something to learn.
Yeah, but that's why you have to network and get out there and be around other founders, so you don't miss out on some good information. And I guess that's how we met, 1 Million Cups, and then you were back at 1 Million Cups. I guess a couple of weeks ago, and so that was really great to see you again there.
Yes.
And yeah, I guess you were on before. Has it been about a year or more? It's been a while, huh?
I think it's been a year.
Yeah, so we definitely glad to have you back. Alrighty, but the programs wouldn't be possible without the sponsors and partners, and definitely when we let them know we were going to do this, the Black Innovation Summit and the Innovation Tour, they all came on board to support what we're doing, and a really big Blacks in Technology Foundation and Bit Pensacola stepped up. Florida Power and Lights, really stepped up in a big way. And his three hotels stepped up. The First, Renaissance, all it's just really amazing. I was just blown away by we had the Watson Law Firm, Clark Partington Law Firm, Quint Studer, Julie Shepard. It was just literally amazing. And so definitely excited to have the support and of all these companies. And we actually end up getting we had partnered with PitchBob. And so are you familiar with that, Amena?
I am not. I'm learning today.
Okay. Yeah. So for founders, a lot of times you don't know how to pitch your idea correctly. You don't know how to say your mission in just the right way. So PitchBob, it actually asks you a bunch of questions and help you with the answers in most cases. And but anyway, it says it says stuff exactly the way the ecosystem wants to hear it. So it builds you a pitch deck, it builds you a sales deck, a business model canvas. It does a lot. But what's neat
Wow.
about it actually helps you learn how to communicate. So like if you're starting from scratch, it'll help you get off to a much better
Yeah.
start. And that's what I like about it. And so our partnership gets the half off to the founders, and so the founders, I think, end up maybe spending $30, to get that.
That's a great opportunity.
Yeah, because a lot of founders, they don't know where to start, but at least if you have some documents,
Guidance.
it's kind of beneficial to do something. But the most exciting thing, I talk about Coda a lot, and I don't know if you heard me talk about it, Coda.io.
Mhm.
Had you came across that yet?
I believe it sounds familiar, so I remember
Yeah.
you mentioned it to me.
Yeah. So I came across one of their ads one time, and it said 80% of the Fortune 500 companies use Coda. And so I like quoting that or repeating that. And so because it makes you scratch your head, why would 80% of the Fortune 500 companies be using Coda? And then, but I look at it from a startup standpoint. Why should a startup use Coda? And it's mainly because you can pull data from anything that's got an API into a Coda document.
Very
And
nice.
so, yeah, you can actually build your MVP with Coda. So that's a lot of things. But I guess it was last week, or the week before, they announced a partnership with us, and basically it allows the founding team to get full use of Coda and unlimited AI, because it's got AI built into it. That was
Mhm.
we were playing with that a little bit today. So you can ask your document or your table questions, and it'll give you answers. It's
Very
really,
nice.
yeah. So that's pretty cute. So we'll get them on this line. So why don't you take a second to tell folks who you are and what you're all about?
Absolutely. So my name is Amena Mabrouk, and I have about 8 years experience as a QA lead, managing either small teams or being head of the department as well. I've worked in fintech. It was a cookie company where I crafted secure payment solutions that streamlined administrative tasks and improved user experiences. And then I transitioned into the edtech industry, a company called ClassKick, where I spearheaded testing efforts, enabling real-time progress monitoring and instant feedback. I helped optimize their processes, cutting their testing time by 67%, automated 95% of their UI with tools like behavior-driven development like Cucumber, Gherkin, Playwright. Also, they had the iOS and web application. I've also worked at Assemble, which is a consultancy agency,
Okay.
and I was contracted out with Apple. So Apple was one of our major clients. where I developed Maven automation framework, did manual testing for them as well for their web application as well as their mobile testing, and optimized their solutions for the Apple Media Service Toolbox, and and worked a lot on the UI UX end of things as well for making sure that the application takes the user experience into consideration. And right now, I'm in the artificial intelligence sector,
Okay.
AlgoFace.ai. So I have a plethora of wide range of set of skills and different domain knowledge. AlgoFace specializes in different technologies, but the one that I'm currently working on is the beauty tech industry. So I ensure ethical deployment of the 2D, 3D virtual try-on technology. So focusing on detailed test plan, data privacy prioritization, aligning technical needs with marketing strategies, and bridging the development and sales goals as part of my set of skills. So anything that has to do with virtual try-on, makeup, hair, lash, etc., testing that thoroughly is what I'm doing right now at AlgoFace. So that's just a little bit about me and what I do, and all of these set of skills kind of evolved into ElevateQA Solutions, which is the type of services that I provide for startups and enterprise companies, and that's what I do. So thank you so much for having me and giving me this opportunity to chat about this.
Yeah, yeah. You mentioned something that you mentioned like QA and ethics in the same breath. So tell me say a little bit about that again. Ethics and AI.
As far as like ethical AI,
Well, so like you kind of said that you had some responsibility in kind of making sure with the company you're working with now to making sure it's used ethically or something.
yes. Yeah, so working with artificial intelligence, as you probably have either read or come across, is data privacy and making sure that it's ethical deployment in the type of technology that we have. So when it comes to quality assurance in the artificial intelligence realm,
Mhm.
there's several things that we have to take into consideration. One is bias detection. So
Okay.
for an example, implementing checks to identify and mitigate biases in AI algorithms that could lead to unfair or discriminatory outcomes, especially
Okay.
regarding, anything that has to do with sensitive attributes.
Okay.
Transparency, making sure that the AI systems are, transparent in their detection, making, those types of things that are seamless for the technology. Privacy detection as well. Implementing measures to protect, user privacy and data information. There's um, a lot of regulations like the GDPR, and there's like a plethora of regulations that it has to go through. So each technology, depends what type of regulations they need, making sure there's fair metrics around that as well. So
Yeah, that's really neat. I'm glad you shared that because that sounds new to me. Because I remember when you were on last, um, we were I was asking a little bit about AI in terms of tools, but now you're just talking about it in terms of QA, and that's really neat to hear hear that
absolutely.
with all these AI applications evolving right now.
Yes, yeah, it's definitely raises a lot of concerns. So there's a lot of quality checks that goes into play. Um,
Mhm.
so
Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to take a second here and sort of do my three favorite slides, and then we'll get back to diving a little deeper with you. Um,
absolutely.
yeah. Yeah. So I want to give a shout out to all the founders and dignitaries who came out to participate in the innovation tour and summit. It was a really impactful event. We, over 90 people attended in person, and we had like 180 sign up online for both online or in person, and so we were totally blown away by the participation all the sponsors that actually came through to help that be a successful event. We had folks from Georgia, Missouri, and Florida. So it was really, really, really neat. And so it was really entertaining to have the folks come into town to kind of support, local founders and from far and near. So I just wanted to kind of, just verbally thank all the sponsors and all the participants, and the speakers were really fantastic, and so definitely want to give a big shout out for them, and also the partners.
Wonderful.
Yeah, and so you're when we talked before, you hadn't started this ElevateQA, and so like what I like to share with founders is you have to know where you are, and in order to know where you're trying to get to. And so when you look at this is one view of like where you are, these different phases that a startup goes through. This is from Startup Commons, and so I think it's good for a founder not to just not know where they are, and when you look at these different approaches to doing it. So this is one way to look at it, and the purpose of this one is, when you're in the positive over here, that means you've launched and you're out going, but there's a lot of things happen, before you launch. And so that's kind of, and you see how it talks about, ideating, concepting, committing, validating, and scaling and establishing. And that's just one way to look at it. So, the other way from the top is just the formation of your startup, and pulling that team together, and then doing the validation and growth. We use the Lean Stack platform, and it has a milestone approach. What milestone are you kind of going through it, but it also does the kind of validation and stuff like that as well. But so it's got these three main phases it talks about here, whereas I think that's similar to up here, but this business model design, business model validation, and business model growth. And so that's one way to look at it. But the training that we provide to founders and make accessible to all founders is that this business model design training, where you learn how to pitch your idea clearly and so like I'm trying to think, I haven't given you access to that yet, have I?
No, but that's okay. I'm following with you.
Yeah, but I'm going to make sure you get access to the platform, so you can kind of see what this is all about, and you can apply to your company as well.
Absolutely.
But the main thing you see here, what this thing shows you, it shows you your traction, and the money curve sort of follows this as well. But it shows you, it's basically a traction curve, and it implies a lot of things. And like down here, if you looked at it as if it was a money curve, you're not making much money. I guess when you get over here at this growth stage, you're making some money. But the bottom line is you start off slow so you can actually learn.
Yes.
And once you learn, you can kind of standardize things and scale. But that's and Ash sent out an email today. He's basically totally remember, was it 2007 or 2009? He created the Lean Canvas, and he's been refining that ever since. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, but it's really powerful training to kind of go through. And so in this business model design, that you end up with some tools that actually helps you determine the desirability, viability, and feasibility of your business model, so you don't spend a whole lot of time out here working on a business model that's actually not viable. And
Yeah,
so,
absolutely. So being able to identify the right problem and validating the market demands and
yeah,
clearly articulating the solution there is really important.
yeah, and you're gonna later on you're gonna come in on the team, but um, building and stuff. But this being able to pitch your business model clearly and concisely, that's one of the levers you have to recruit a team. Because if you're really active, participating in the ecosystem, participating in pitch competitions, program, somebody want to join a team where something decent happen. And so the other thing that's not seen here is you're not building anything to you get over here, and
Yeah.
and so you're literally pitching your business model. The business model is the product. And
Yeah.
so that's a kind of a neat approach. And here's my last one. So this is Greg Shepard, and he's got a book coming out too in the fall, but he looks at it in a totally kind of different way. But and he explained it today in this webinar. But it's yeah, so it's a really neat approach. And one of the things he pointed out today that really surprised me. Um, and so it's like, you know, like here you talk about the standardization, but he said basically what he's saying is whatever you do to make your business run, you write it down, and
Yes.
and kind of document it. But he says a lot of people try to recruit staff in this go to market stage, but without this being done, so the people they recruit in don't know what to do.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and so companies can actually go broke by hiring too early.
I've seen that before.
Yeah, and so
Yeah,
yeah,
that is very true.
yeah. So the good news is this particular approach here, we have the Startup Science platform, and it's available for founders to use, and it helps you go from this vision to the exit based on the stuff he learned from going through 12 exits. And so, and that's a really neat thing. Yes. So, but yeah, I just wanted to kind of share that with people, because those tools are available for founders to kind of go through and learn some of these best practices.
It's valuable information, honestly.
Yeah, and it's all about the oh man, I got to tell this story. This is I met a young lady this weekend, and she's a founder. She's getting ready to prepare for Shark Tank audition, but she told me she had won a $250,000 pitch competition.
All right.
Okay, so imagine that. But she said she only got a part of the money. But what she told me was that they asked her to for some information about her plan. What are you going to do now? And, what are you going to, next 30 days, next 90 days, and the next year. And what we call it in the Lean Startup, we call it, I think it's a now, then, later plan, like a rollout.
Mm-hmm.
And so she didn't know how to answer that. So, so she ended up not getting the money.
Oh, wow.
And so what we're seeing with a lot of founders, they lose out on opportunity because they don't know how to what the ecosystem is. They don't speak the language of the ecosystem. So that's
Right.
what we try to teach people, the language of the ecosystem, so they can actually take advantage of all these opportunities that are out there to get stuff for free.
Yes. It's actually really important to be able to communicate that effectively, especially when preparation meets opportunity.
Oh yeah, and so
So,
both of that link stack and that startup size, you will be ready to deal with the ecosystem, and
yeah,
that's the point I want to
wonderful.
make. So, what made you decide to start Elevate QA?
To be honest, I've been doing contract work for quite some time, but it was never really under an umbrella of a name to
Okay,
give it exposure, to give exposure to the set of skills that I can provide to either startups or enterprise companies.
gotcha.
So Elevate QA is just to
Right.
put it front forward to say, hey, I exist. This is what I
Yeah,
offer. This is how I can help. And let's move forward.
yes, yeah. So that's pretty neat. And so, like, when um, so the other thing was you presented at 1 million cups, I guess, earlier this month, and that's when I invited you to come back on. And one of the things I was asking you and the other speaker about, the kind of scalability of your business model. And so that training stuff, that's what it actually teaches you how to, design your business model so it is scalable.
Yes.
And so that's the and that's the neat thing about coming to something like 1 million cups, for example, and they hold those in cities all over the US. And so that you can kind of get feedback on how to kind of move forward.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so that's a really good tip. So I think what we'll do here is I'll let you have the floor, and you can kind of share what you're seeing out there, in the industry, and and, share your best practices for working with founders.
All right. Yeah. So it's a short presentation, and I've decided to position this in a way that provides startups with nuggets, takeaways,
Okay.
basically. That way, you can take that information and give it to developers. You can actually position anything that I provide you today in a way to position it for developers to implement or take into consideration. So before I delve into it, along with my QA services, we are also a small catery here in Pensacola, Florida. We are purebred Persian doll-faced kittens, and we have two of them available that need a home. So if you're interested or know anybody that's interested, please share our information. We have two kittens that are looking for their forever home. So with that being said, I'll go ahead and segue into our agenda for today. It's very simple. So why QA matters for startups. Key considerations for mobile development. So I'm only going to focus on mobile development, considering that everything is mobile these days. Startup best practices for effective QA. And any questions or conclusions that you may have. Also, feel free to intercede during the presentation. If any question comes up, Lloyd will help me with keeping an eye on the comments or in
Sure.
the chat, and feel free to intercede throughout the presentation, because sometimes when a question pops up and it's answered in the moment, you're able to make that connection. So I love the collaboration and communicative approach.
Yeah, and I just reshared the link to the Canva your presentation too. So
Thank
folks,
you.
yeah,
Yeah.
grab that.
So we'll start with why QA matters for startup. There's three main points to really take away for this is applies for even enterprise levels. So one is user satisfaction. So making sure that, the quality assurance, the product functions as intended, free of bugs and with seamless interactions for users. That's aligned with the user satisfaction. Also, well-tested product results in high user satisfaction, so increased engagement and positive word of mouth. So as startups, we want to make sure that we encourage word of mouth in a positive way that recommends the product. And the only way to do that is that it's well tested, and we prioritize the defects in a way that ensures the main functional flows actually work as expected. And that aligns with the user satisfaction. This also ties into with brand reputation. So consistently delivering high quality product builds trust and credibility with users. Users tend to give grace when they love the product and they know that the main functionalities that they are looking for, you're the only one that provides. So there are times where they will overlook defects, because if you go to any application on Apple or Android store, right, you can read the reviews, and the reviews will give you insight on some of the issues that are reported. But then if you look at the number of downloads and the number of likes, that tells you that, yeah, while they're complaining, but they're still actually engaged, and they trust the brand enough, because whatever their main functional flows are, they actually still love it and they still go back to it. Now, the issue would be is if the brand reputation is not up to par and a competitor comes in, that's where then you need to start thinking about, actually, you want to think about it prior, and making sure you address these main issues, especially if it's causing major friction for the user. Another thing about brand reputation is positive experiences lead to a strong brand reputation, as mentioned before, which can differentiate the startup from competitors and attract new customers. And that's really how you want to position yourself. The third one is the overall business success. So quality assurance contributes to the overall success of the business by reducing customer churn and increase customer retention. The goal is always to acquire new customers, and not only to acquire them, but to also ensure that we retain the customers we acquire. We don't want to lose all of our customers that we acquire. So those are the three main things on why QA matters in startups: is user satisfaction, brand reputation, and overall business success. Those are the three top main priorities. Now, the next thing I want to segue into, which is coinciding with our agenda, is what do we consider when it comes to mobile development? I was able to break it up into four main segments, or four main categories. The first one is performance optimization. So when we think of mobile development, we want to ensure user experience and fast load time. I'm pretty sure we've all experienced mobile applications where the loading time was more than 30 seconds, more than even 10 seconds, and we automatically leave the application. So we want to ensure that it loads pretty fast. The next one is platform diversity, so addressing compatibility issues across different devices, operating system, and screen size. When we get to that slide, I'm going to dive a little bit deeper on what startups really need to consider in this realm. But this is something that we need to take into consideration, is platform diversity when we're actually building out a software application. The third one is security, so implementing measures to protect user data and prevent vulnerabilities. So how do we actually inculcate security measures or security checks when we're building out our software? And I'll give you real concrete, applicable ways to ensure those checks are actually implemented in your development life cycle for your application. And by the way, what I mention here, even though it's specific to mobile development, these types of practices or nuggets of information that I'm going to provide you can also be implemented for web as well. So don't just segment for mobile, broaden your horizon and widen your perspective. Anything that's applied here can also be applied for web applications as well. The fourth most important one is user interface. So the UI and user experience, which is the UX testing. So ensuring intuitive navigation and engaging design. Think of Instagram, Facebook, those are the big players, of course, within our industry, but they've pretty much set the stage as to what type of UI needs to look like, how the UX needs to look like, the design aspect of it. So all of these gives you ideas on what does that look like? What does it feel like for the user that's already been established in the industry that we might want to take into consideration when we're developing, creating our mobile application as a startup. So I want to pause here and see if there's anyone who has any questions. That way I'm not just ranting the entire time.
Oh, you're doing good. I don't see any. I've been sharing, your presentation on the different Facebook groups and stuff. So
Wonderful. Okay,
yeah, so,
cool.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
I'll just segue into diving into the first point that we discussed. Performance optimization ensures smooth user experience and fast load time. So what does that mean and what does that look like for you when you're developing your mobile application? The first part is to ensure smooth user experience and fast load time. So what does that look like? Like, what is it that we need to take into consideration? One is reduce the number of file loads loaded on each page. And then the other one is make images smaller without losing quality. So any type of mobile application will have a lot of images. So making sure that we reduce the size will actually really help speed up the load time for the mobile application. Another one that is easily missed sometimes is implementing browser caching. So store resources locally to avoid downloading them again and again. So anytime the user actually visits your website the second, third, fourth, fifth time, it'll instantly load because you've implemented a browser caching feature into your application. So this will speed up the page loading for returning visitors. That's really what that does. Another one is optimizing performance for better engagement. So one way we can do this is ensure that actions on the website or app are responsive and quick. So we want to kind of take that into consideration. So minimize delays between user input and system responses. This has to do a little bit with the front end and the back end, that both teams need to kind of have a conversation about that. And then, of course, ensuring overall responsiveness. So improve the speed of transactions and animations. If you have any of that on your application, make sure that all elements load and display smoothly to keep the user engaged. So everything that was mentioned on this slide can be taken into consideration as an acceptance criteria. When I'm developing a mobile application, what needs to be a part of the acceptance criteria as a non-negotiable for the developer to start developing the application? So these are actually some of the things that you can take into consideration as part of the acceptance criteria. Hey, I need to make sure that it's optimized, the website is optimized for performance. These are the types of things that need to be placed in the development process. And then breaking up the story accordingly. That way they're able to deliver on the promise. The next thing we're going to talk about is the second part. So platform diversity, and this is the one that I spoke that I will dive a little bit deeper on. Now, ideally, when we talk about the big giants, of course, addressing compatibility issues across different devices, operating systems, and size screens. This is very realistic when you're scaling and you're up there or heading towards enterprise, or you are an enterprise company. But as a startup, the one thing I would highly advise is to select based on market research, of course, and based on the data-driven information that you have, meaning what segment are you addressing? What market are you addressing? What users? What is the buyer persona? The buyer persona gives you perspective on the ideal user or candidate that is most likely to utilize your application. And based on that data, you'll be able to understand what browser are they most likely to use. So here in America, we mainly use Chrome, but overseas, abroad, they mainly use Firefox and Android. So if the applications to address abroad, you might want to consider the development of the applications to start addressing the buyer persona that you're most likely to serve or provide a solution for. So those are things to take into consideration. Now, once you've scaled, of course, you want to make sure you address Chrome, Firefox, Safari, Edge, and desktop, tablet, smartphone, all that jazz. But as a startup, you don't want to overwhelm yourself and try to address everything all at once. There's no such a thing. Even Apple had, Steve Jobs had the iPhone and the iPad. He knew to set aside the iPad and address the iPhone. Once he dominated with the iPhone, he took over with the iPad. We have the smartwatches and everything else, as you see. So that's definitely something to take into consideration as a startup is what is the market research? What is it that you're targeting? And once you've actually decided that, there's actually a Apple Developer Guide. I don't know if this is going to allow sharing that. I'm going to share this in the chat. That way you can click on it with me. So let's say your user is for iPhone. You're going to decide to do that first for your mobile development. Apple provides a complete layout design with all the specifications and resources and platform considerations and best practices for mobile development for the buyer persona that you're trying to address. Even this link here, the Google Analytics for iPhone, this actually gives you really important information that gives you more from the analytical perspective. And one thing to check for when you're actually doing your research is the date of the publication, because a lot of times when we're reading things online, we don't realize that this was published 6-7 years ago. So for an example, this link that I provided, it shows you up top the last time it was updated, which was June 2022. So you know that someone is on there actively updating this information with relevant content. So it's something probably worth following. But that's just all like nuggets and resources to think about when you're actually doing a mobile development. I'm gonna pause here and see.
Yes, you had before we came on, you were talking about the founders wanting to develop and have an app develop, but they don't really know how to deal with the developer. What the developer needs to know in order to actually build an app for them.
Yes. That's probably one of the biggest challenges that I've actually experienced myself.
Okay.
Is as a new founder within the software tech industry, the hardest part is navigating a space that is unseen. Technology is kind of like hidden in the background, and that's what's really the most frustrating part about it. It's not physical, it's not tangible. You can't pick it up, but you can definitely use it and make money off of it if it's done correctly.
Yes.
So it goes back to what you said earlier, is making sure you're around a community and ecosystem where you can bounce ideas and be able to contact people. And please use me as a resource. Feel free to navigate to my website and schedule some time to bounce ideas. But being able to be a part of an ecosystem that's willing to share information willfully and intentionally. So one is defining your requirements. So for an example, this is why I was very specific about my presentations for mobile development. So you have to be very clear about what it is that you're trying to develop, for whom you're trying to develop, and what solution you're trying to provide. Once you've honed in on that, you want to then identify the requirements. And you really do need a guide with you or someone who will support you. The reason I say this is because when you're walking in, kind of it's like you're walking in blind because that's really what it is. I don't know how best to describe it because I've been there. When you're walking in blind, the hardest part is trusting yourself in something that you haven't done before. And that's why the ecosystem is so important, and having someone to guide you through this is really important. So
Yeah.
defining requirements, clearly articulate your vision for the application. Don't be afraid to also look around competitors. And the competitors are not to deter you away or to put you down. They are mainly for you. You have to shift your perspective. It's mainly to gather ideas, suggestions, and to gather insight on where they've placed what button and why, and what's missing in that application, what customers are complaining about, because all of that is data that you can pull from and position it in a way to set yourself apart. You can actually take everything that they're complaining about, recreate an application that provides that solution, and you'll have all these customers navigating to your application. So don't ever look at competition as a deterrent, rather as gathering information to see,
Yes. Yes.
you know, research and select the developers. So there's two things to this when you mentioned, how to communicate with developers. One is communicating to the developer, but the other thing is finding a legit developer. Like, where in the world do I find a legit developer?
Gotcha.
Again, I'll be honest with you. The one thing that was most effective for me is environments like this, when I'm talking with people that will lead me to a developer. For an example, the first time I was here actually presenting, I met Quinn,
Yeah.
who's the
Yeah.
application.
Mhm.
Then we met locally, and I was able to do some testing for him, where I was able to connect him with another individual who's a beast at backend.
Okay.
And he's been actually collaborating with him since then, and they've been working together since then. So a connection leads to a connection leads to a connection.
Right. Yeah.
Honest people will lead you to honest people, will further lead you to honest people. Cheesy
But
people will lead you to cheesy people with further cheesy people. That's just the way it is.
yeah, and so I'm glad you're mentioning all this because uh, a lot of founders and so I'm here in the ecosystem, trying to help founders, but very few founders, that we're working with come to me or ask me, about developers or how to find the right developer. And they come to me after they are having trouble with the developer. And that's,
Yeah.
you should come before, you try to hire somebody.
Yes, that is actually very true. It's very challenging,
It
but
is.
don't be afraid to ask. And one thing that was very hard for me when I actually started was I understood how naive, how, like start up, right? You don't know what to ask. You're trying to
Mhm.
ask it, but you're not asking it the right way. And I found that that in itself was my biggest blocker.
Yes, yeah.
So just make sure you ask it even if you're not sure of the question. And throughout the conversation, you're like, you know what? Let me clarify. This is actually my question. So can I
Gotcha.
just, so don't be afraid to do that.
So it looks like Tony has a question here. Um,
Yeah. Do you have any high level advice for porting a web platform to an app? Ooh, I think, well, do you understanding you have to choose the right approach when you're porting the web platform to an app. So decide whether to develop a native app, like is it iOS or Android. I've had oh, yeah. So are you asking for whom to hire or just in general, Tony?
yeah, he's saying he had to fire a few, but I think what he's asking is he he has a web application now, but he's interested in a mobile application. And I don't know what the best answer to that question is, but doesn't a web application have a back end?
I'm pretty sure it does.
Yeah. And so what he is, it's not that he's porting it. He would just be using that same back end for the mobile application, or maybe maybe not. I don't know. So
Yeah,
that's the way I look at it. Is in my experience, we built the back end and we used the back end for the web app and the mobile app.
yeah, that's definitely one way to do it. I'll stick to the high level because unless I really have a deep conversation, it's really hard to do the whole technical thing of front and back end. But in terms of high level, the one thing that honestly comes to mind is choosing the right mobile platform. So again, back to who's your buyer's persona? Whom are you providing the solution for? If it's, are they mainly Android users or are they mainly iOS users? And based on that, that's the right mobile platform you want to select. Or is it both? Um, think of for cross-platform solutions like React Native. That's something also I've seen that people use for moving from web to a mobile application. Yeah, so those are the one things that I think of is resources, target audience, performance requirements. And based on that, you'll be able to then funnel down whether iOS or Android. If you decide iOS, then from there you need to funnel down even further. And I'm happy to have that conversation with you off this meeting if you'd like. But that's really also design and mobile experience. Make sure that if you're going into an application, web is different. Web users are different than mobile users. So adapt to the user interface for UX UI that's suited for a small screen, touch interactions or mobile devices, navigation, optimize the layout, prioritize key actions for mobile users. Those are all things that need to be taken into consideration. Think of like the performance, such as what I mentioned in my presentation. That's something actually you can implement as part of the acceptance criteria. Those are the things, honestly, that you can take into consideration. Another one, you can also take advantage of native mobile features such as like push notifications, camera, geolocation. There's also offline support to enhance the functionalities. That's something to consider. And utilizing platforms specific to APIs and libraries to access their features. So when the developer is developing, they need to understand, what specific APIs and libraries that they can access that they can leverage native features versus spending a bunch of time creating these features for you, because there's a lot of native features that are actually available. Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Yeah, and we'll let you get back to your presentation here.
Yeah, no worries. But if you want to dive deeper, Tony, feel free. My website has a Calendly link. You can select 30 minutes and we can chat a little bit more about it, and I'm happy to help. But great question, so thank you.
Yes.
I think I mentioned, this one is like the platform diversity as a startup, think of one platform, one browser. Don't be all over the place, because honestly, it's really hard to address everything all at once, especially in the beginning when you're dealing with the MVP. The other one is security. So implementing measures to protect user data and prevent vulnerabilities. Data encryption is very important when we're talking about mobile applications or any application for that matter, unless you're Google and your search engine, and it doesn't matter. So awesome. Wonderful. gather as much information as you can, Tony. Sorry, I paused there because I was reading the comment, but data encryption, or when it comes to security, is extremely important. So encrypt sensitive data during transmission and storage to prevent unauthorized access is really important. Use secure protocols such as HTTPS to ensure data integrity and confidentiality. Those are all things that can be actually included in your development process. Another one is regular security audits and updates. So this is something that needs to be on the regular to check. It's not something like you do once and you leave it. That's not how it works. So you want to conduct regular security audits to identify any patches, vulnerabilities in the system. Keep software, frameworks, and libraries up to date with the latest security patches and updates to mitigate potential risks. So back to your question, back to your concern there, Tony, when you said you had to fire a few. When we're seeking out to actually hire people with a set of skills, one thing to not be afraid to ask, even as a startup, is referrals. Go on their LinkedIn, look at their friends, look at their reviews. I actually, as a startup, would reach out to their connections that they've had and see, especially people who have left reviews, and actually ask for a one-on-one or some conversation with them to talk about, okay, what is their set of skills, what are they good at, etc. So don't be afraid to do that. And then I think this is the last one, the fourth point, which we've touched a little bit about this with Tony's question. The user interface is very important, and user experience, the UX testing is very important. So ensuring intuitive and navigating and engaging design. And that all ties into the market research that you have done about your buyer persona, because that's going to determine which layout you're going to use. Like, for an example, the one I shared earlier, which is the developer.apple.com link that gives you the specifications, the platform considerations, any resources, the layout and design for iOS and iPad. That all is going to impact development. That's all going to impact whom you hire. You're going to end up hiring an iOS engineer, not an Android engineer. And you're going to be very specific about the browsers you want to be compatible for, because people using iOS are most likely using Chrome or Firefox or both. Maybe you want to prioritize both. So those are things to take into consideration. Now, in terms of this fourth point, I'm just going to briefly touch on these because I feel like we've kind of addressed it. Consistent design patterns, that's one that needs to be taken into consideration. Color, font, buttons, icons, all the same. You don't want to have one button different than the other, or on another page it looks slightly different or positioned elsewhere. That makes it very confusing for the user. Use common design layouts like the logo at the top left. This goes back to the market research based on the segment that you're trying to create a solution for. So if I'm in the industry for the, give me an example, like Lloyd, I'm going to have you come through. Like, give me an example of an application.
Like a mobile application, or
yeah, like what segment what customer or user you would like to, address? Would it be in the fintech industry, or I don't know? An example.
So like, I'll give you a hypothetical example, not total hypothetical, but like, let's say we, wouldn't mind having a application that founders can actually use to kind of, that knows all the best practices, and the founder just can prompt it to answer some questions, I guess.
Okay.
Founders, I guess.
Okay. So really, I think actually that would be a useful application.
Hmm.
So we need to think about, of course, when we're the social impact for entrepreneurs,
Hmm.
thinking about this is going to be probably heavily focused on the startup community. So
Yes.
now this is where the research comes into play, where we need to look at, are there other applications like this? And if there are, what type of design have they laid out?
Okay.
And based on the design that they've laid out, we want to then look at when we want to consider, design patterns and use common design layouts like the logo or anything that's in the upper left. Those are things we're going to observe as we're looking at the competition in that landscape. Is how have they designed this application? What does the design look like? Where are the buttons? What is the look and feel? What type of guidelines have they utilized?
Mhm.
And if, let's say, there's 4 or 5 applications of that nature, then we can take away the patterns that we've identified across, let's say, 5 applications.
Okay.
And those are the ones that we are most likely want to consider implementing in our new, founders application where they
So,
can,
so I want to make sure I heard you right, because it sounded like you said look at some applications that are already out there and things you like about them, and
yeah,
then use that information to help you figure out how to, don't reinvent the wheel, just, yeah,
yeah,
just, yeah, and that sounds good.
yeah. And of course, use engaging visuals and interactions, any high quality images and videos, add interactive elements like animations, listen to users. Sometimes you want to do a soft launch where you don't want to expose it to the entirety of your market that you want to address. Maybe you want to just do just a small segment of users that are testing it. And then once you get the feedback, do the fixes, deploy those fixes. Maybe after that, you want to launch the application to everyone. And then clear navigation structure, easy to navigate, to click around, to understand. And this one here is, what are some of the best practices for effective QA? Anytime you're a startup, I know you're still kind of creating an MVP, but once you actually have a minimal viable product that's in the hand of the consumer, this is where you want to start writing your test cases. Use an Excel spreadsheet. I've worked with startups where that's where they started. They were using an Excel spreadsheet. Do exploratory testing on your application, meaning just click around, make sure it's just the main function flows are actually working, and share your findings with the team. That's one thing that I've actually observed with startups is the communication, the establishment of communication between the team that you build or that you have has to be very clear to what your expectations are. It is okay to say, I need you to post an update every day on what you've worked on and to provide a screenshot or a video demo of what you've worked on in your Slack channel or whatever mode that you are using as a form of communication. That way you have visibility and transparency. I work remote, so unless I'm constantly posting in our Slack channel, the team does not know what it is that I've done or what I've worked on or what I've tested or what issues I've found. So it is test often because updates break things. Yes. Yeah. New code combined with old code will always break things. So, and also review the work and check your work. And again, the communication is so important because I've seen that such a problem with startups. This is just my favorite quote. Quality is never an accident. It is always the result of intelligent, intentional effort. And using your resources, don't be afraid to come say, hey, this is what I'm doing, what to think about. That way you have well-rounded information before you start. And the last one is, this is more about my services. If you choose to bring me on board, I can do project-based fee, We can negotiate a fixed fee for completing a specific short-term or one-time project. There's a retainer, which is a fixed fee for ongoing consultant services, kind of like a subscription model. We can come up with a happy medium or an hourly rate. Honestly, most people go for these two, either project-based or kind of like a subscription model where you can just reach out to me at any time, or that will make me available to your team to communicate with your developers directly. So that concludes my presentation. Of course, I'm Amena Mabrouk, and I elevate how businesses approach product development and management. Again, don't forget about my cats. AMK, don't forget about my cats. They need a home. There's 2 of them. They're about, 10 weeks old. So feel free to reach out. Go to ElevateQAsolutions.com, 30 minutes, book an appointment, and let's chat.
Yeah. So I just when you showed your payment structure, it made me think about some companies are trying this fractional CTO of, so I'm saying, what about a fractional quality assurance person? I haven't ever dove deeply into that model to see how they make it scale or whatever, but I have seen that
Yeah.
as a kind of a catchy way to kind of move things forward.
9 out of 10 times they keep you and it becomes long term, honestly, because they see the value in it.
Oh yeah, and that's what the whole point is so if a founder is having trouble finding a CTO, you can hire a fractional CTO, I guess, a fractional QA, and I just mention it as a way to communicate, what you charge for your services. So so you may have a rate for 20% of 40% or 50% of your time or something like that. But as long as you can onboard customers, that's the main thing.
Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah. So I definitely like your approach, to kind of QA. Yeah, and seems like it's steadily evolving because you didn't talk about the AI last time, but I knew AI stuff was coming, and I didn't have any idea how it was going to fit into QA, but yeah. So I guess anybody else got any last minute questions? Otherwise, we're gonna let Amena, give her parting words, and we'll get ready for next week.
Yeah, and feel free to reach out also on LinkedIn. So let's connect as well. Don't forget that.
Yes. I think the quality is like real, the most kind of important thing right now, and like so I wonder, and and based on the news, I would say that the challenges that Boeing is having right now are quality issues, but I'm just, I don't know, just based on what the news, but it's hard to imagine, if you want to be really successful, not putting quality up there, high on the list.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes. Well, any parting words before we sign off?
No, just thank you so much for the opportunity. And like I mentioned, feel free to reach out. My website has a Calendly where you can just book an appointment.
That's
and
good.
Spread the word about my kitties because they need a home. And thank you so much.
Yeah, and so that I think like it sounds like you are perfect for like a conference or symposium speaker too, as for especially like if both in person and online, because you definitely got some really good information.
Absolutely. Happy to
there.
help.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of where you're going to probably get most of a lot of customers that way as well.
All right.
All
Sounds
righty. So thanks a million again. If you just hold on, I'm going to sign off. And everybody, we appreciate you all participating, and we'll see you all next week.
Bye.